When your expected goals is lower than 1 for both sides, that pretty much sums up this final overall.
Expected goals, expected schmoles, whatever you want to say.
Why was it so poor?
I think, in my opinion, Chelsea's approach was one which was basically built around a side who struggled to find wins and confidence in recent weeks. So they found something against Liverpool playing in that style. I think Colwell being back, Reece James being back in there as well, you saw a more robust side to them. But I think with most of the attacking coming from Gusto on one side and Cucurella on the other, their defenders, you know, they might be able to contribute in attack sometimes, but they're defenders, so their attack wasn't really there. And I think from a City standpoint, at times, I think Marmoush and Haaland didn't work well together as a two. And as the game wore on, Roger was getting more tired. They were losing that influence in that midfield section. And it was boring. It was boring. That's essentially what it was. Yeah. Because every time Doku got the ball, for example, somebody who we want to see on the ball, it's a 2v1 against him. It's going to be very difficult for him to go past two players and so on. So Chelsea tried to make it for hard as City as they could. That's their first thing. And they did do that. So when that ends up being the case, you get a game like that.
Jermaine, as a striker, talk us through the Semenyo goal.
Oh, what a finish. So he didn't have his best game today.
No, I think not many players did, to be honest.
Exactly, and I think that's something that we need to address. But at the same time, he was part of the build-up. The one thing he does really, really well, he doesn't set the ball off and watch and admire his pass and admire what's going on in front of him, the attacking play. He finds himself going into the danger areas, into the 18-yard box, closing into the 6-yard box, close to where the goalkeeper is. Lovely little ball across the pitch from Haaland. But that finish, the little backheel finish, is so difficult to do. 9 times out of 10, you will miss the target. Right. Every now and then, you'll miss the ball completely. But to do it from that angle, oh my gosh, the goalkeeper has absolutely no chance of getting there because he doesn't expect it.
Yeah. I'm offended you didn't ask me about that finish.
Well, yes, I know. We go back to Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, sometime in 2010 or whatever. But I think in fairness from Chelsea, from this perspective, Colwell is on Semenyo. Right. So when Semenyo does that, there are certain times in football where you hold your hand up and say, well, there's not much I could have done there. Yeah. That's great forward play. That's a fantastic finish. And something where 9 times out of 10 that probably doesn't go in, but today it certainly did.
And of course, you kind of felt as this game was going on, it was going to take a big mistake or something special to separate these two sides.
Yeah, and I don't know if you'd agree, but defensively, the teams weren't making that many mistakes. A lot of mistakes were happening in the attack. Yeah. So maybe it was going to be that quality. Would you agree?
100%. 100%. I don't feel like Chelsea put City under enough pressure for them to make a mistake in the first place. And on the flip side of it, I think the way City were playing, Chelsea had to just sit deep anyway, you know. So they weren't, I mentioned before, they weren't making the penetrative passes through the midfield or through the defenders. They weren't getting the defenders facing their own goal. Everything was being played in front of them, and it was neat and tidy, don't get me wrong. It was pleasing on the eye, but as a striker, I want to see goals, I want to see opportunities, I want to see shots, I want to see saves. We didn't see enough of that today.
We saw the emotion in Bernardo Silva when he caught himself on the big screen at the top. Obviously, this is last piece of silverware, in theory, that he'll lift for Manchester City. What will the history books say about him?
For Manchester City, he's an icon. I think they showed recently that through his tenure at City, he's not played in maybe 7 games total. That is it. So you can see how important he's been, and at times maybe he's playing as 6, maybe he's playing as an 8, maybe he's high and wide on the side. He's played left back as well. One thing for sure is that he's had to be played. He's probably Pep Guardiola's most trusted player throughout that whole time. So legacy-wise for him this year, being given the captain's armband as well, for him to walk up those steps twice, to be able to lift the trophy in that manner, and to know that, you know, these are the final days in what's been an incredible chapter for him, for Man City, you know, for his legacy in the Premier League as well. So he's rightly emotional. Same for John Stones, who isn't necessarily getting a chance to play, like Bernardo Silva is. But as he walks away, people lift him onto their shoulders because he's been an icon for Manchester City.
I always feel someone like Bernardo Silva is someone who former players appreciate more than fans even, because you can see what he does maybe more than those who haven't played at that level. Yeah,
absolutely. He's one of those players that he's the creative force before the creative force. You know, every time he gets the ball, he'll always give you 110% energy and effort. He's not the quickest player in the world, but he's so intelligent. The way he plays the game 2 steps ahead of everybody else, and that's why he stands out as much as he does. Yeah, sure. For me, as a striker, I would have loved to have played with somebody like that, with Bernardo Silva, just because of the way that he makes space, not just for himself, but for everybody around him. He's an incredible footballer, great human being, and genuinely, it's going to be a shame to see him leaving the Premier League.
For sure. What I would say, the same way with Bernardo Silva is the same way it was for David Silva. When they first came, I thought these small little left-footed players want to play like little rinky-dinky football, get into them, be physical, you'll dominate them. For all the years that those two played, they've never been dominated, and instead their influence has been phenomenal. You give them the ball and you trust them with the ball. Very rarely do they turn it over. All the time, they're dictating the tempo and the mood of a game of football. 100%. And for both of them, they've been through City's most consequential era in their history, at a time when the Premier League is changing styles and so on. Little Bernardo Silva, who is not very tall, it's not very fast, not very strong, is still without question one of the most important players for a team that's won so much.
Let's welcome in Craig Burley is with us. Craig, of course, we didn't hear your commentary. I'm sorry, it was full of sunshine and positivity, wasn't it, for this game?
Well, I was about as positive as I could in that first 45 minutes.
It was tough.
I think a bit like Leeds when they came here against Chelsea. I think Chelsea will feel, particularly in that first half, they've left it on the table. And what do we talk about when we saw the lineups? What will happen when City push them back to a back five? Is that they'll dominate the middle of the park. They'll dominate possession, and that's how it panned out. So, yeah, the City didn't have to be great. Chelsea were a bit better in the second half. I heard you boys talking just before I came down. City are not a juggernaut at the moment. They're a good side, and I just feel Chelsea were a little bit too
We got
faithful.
Bernardo Silva. I'm not sure if you can get him just here. He's walking behind Craig. We were just talking about how he's going to be missed, Craig.
Oh, I thought you were going to get him in for an interview.
You're going to have to get him yourself, Craig. That's
Well,
the thing.
I'll go.
You use your Burley charm.
It's certainly better than
Burley
Solskjaer.
charm.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was just talking. You had David Silva, as you well know, who was an 8 out of 10 every week, sometimes a 9 or a 10, and you replace that at some point with the Portuguese version.
Exactly the same,
Who's that consistent player, and for someone so diminutive, he's not big, to have that physical presence and want that physical battle as well. It's absolutely brilliant.
We were saying before, like, he's a player that shouldn't be as good as he has been for this whole time. When I think about the way the Premier League is, a player that's maybe 5'8", 5'9", isn't the quickest, isn't the strongest, but for City across those years has been as important as anybody else within that side.
Well, he was going to leave a couple of years ago, wasn't he?
Every year has been rumoured,
and then he was talked out of it. But I think the time is right for him.
Yeah.
Going out in this sort of high.
I would say so, yeah. I would say so.
And there might even be a Premier League, isn't there?
You never know. And I think what's been key, for this year with him, this is the first year he's been captain and wearing the armband and taking on that responsibility with this new side, with new players. They see the game in a different way, but I think he's led by example.
And that's an example that you feel that teams like Chelsea, Jermaine, have been missing. Like people like Rodri, who we saw today, Bernardo Silva, people who can take this team, take this 11 by the scruff of the neck and lift them to the standards that Pep wants.
Yeah, absolutely. With Chelsea, that's why they spent over £200 million on two centre midfield players.
Yep.
They were hoping one of, if not both of those two midfield players, Enzo and Caicedo, were going to be something similar. You don't spend £100 million and not expect to get a phenomenal football player. It just, something behind the scenes at Chelsea is just not quite right.
Yeah.
It took them a little bit of time. Maybe the price tag was a little bit too heavy on them. Maybe the expectations that come with it.
To be fair, I think where I'll sort of go slightly against it, I think Enzo and Caicedo have turned out to be players that they wanted to be.
They've grown into it.
I think so.
Yeah, I
but
agree.
I think there are other
but
players
initially, maybe it was a bit too much for them.
Yeah, I think for me anyway, which players are key for Chelsea. You mentioned those two. Like at his best, you mentioned Nicole Palmer. You could talk about Levi Colwill or Reece James.
Yeah.
But I think for me, a lot of the supporting cast around it, at times they can't elevate themselves to that level to where they can be competitive.
If you have a midfield today of it was almost a little box at times. Sometimes they have to go a bit wider. But if you have Caicedo and you have Reece James and you have Fernandes and Cole Palmer, and then you secede possession and ask them to have to do a defensive job, that's going against the grain of what these guys are about, what brings the best out of them. Hey, Cole Palmer going back to help Malagusto for the bulk of the game isn't where he's going to hurt City. So I just feel Chelsea they've got no direction at the moment, never mind no leadership.